Thank you, Stephen. Mike Costello, our boxing correspondent, is alongside me. Before we set up the night, Mike, there's a very poignant moment about to take place here at Bramwell Lane.
Yes, the traditional boxing salute to the fallen is a 10-bell salute, and Michael Buffett is in the centre of the ring here at Bramwell Lane at the moment, as everybody here in the crowd rises to their feet, applauding at the moment, and soon it will be the traditional salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please, in their honor, we would like to observe a memorial minute of silence to those who tragically lost their lives in the horror of Manchester Arena. Please. Rest in peace, Manchester. We will never forget you.
A poignant way to start the night here on 5 Live from Bramwell Lane in Sheffield.
To Manchester, the show must go on. Coming to the ring at this time, please welcome Fedor Chudinov.
So Fedor Chudinov on his way into the ring. The Steel City ready for Kell Brook's big night. The home of Sheffield United has been transformed into the perfect big fight venue, with over 27,000 fans expected in here by the time Brook makes his way into the ring later on. In his way is the impressive unbeaten American Errol Spence, a rising star in world boxing and a very serious challenger for the IBF World Welterweight title. But before that, George Groves makes his 4th challenge for the Super-Middleweight crown, up against the man on his way to the ring right now, Fedor Chudinov. Is tonight the night for Groves after failing twice against Carl Froch and against Badu Jack? Our big fight team is befitting of a big night like this. Trainer Adam Booth, boxing writer Steve Bunce, and our boxing correspondent Mike Costello. George Groves on the way very soon, Mike, but what about this arena here tonight and all the people here at Bramwell Lane?
Yes, as Fedor Chudinov arrives in the ring over on the far side of the ring here on the centre circle at Bramwell Lane, this has the potential to be another special night of British boxing, with the year not yet half over. Already 2 events that have resonated across the boxing world, with Joshua versus Klitschko and Hay versus Bellew, and once again alongside us here at ringside, a huge American crew from Showtime Television, soon to be broadcasting live across the United States.
And now making his way to the ring, the St. George Groves.
So George Groves will soon appear in full sight of the crowd of 27,000 here at the home of Sheffield United. And at the moment, on the 4 huge screens above us here at ringside, are some of the highlights of George Groves' career. 25 wins, 3 defeats, all of them in world title fights. Twice against Carl Froch, once outdoors on an occasion such as this at Wembley in 2014, and the time before that at the Manchester Arena. And George Groves has been talking emotionally and poignantly about his appearance at the Manchester Arena in that memorable fight in 2013. And he sits at the back of the arena, soon to leave his dressing room for his 4th attempt to win a world title. And there is rapturous applause as the images of him now making his way in lonely fashion, as is always the case here in boxing, the loneliest sport in the world. These men often surrounded in the build-up leading up to the fights, but then once they enter the ring, it's all about themselves and their preparation and how they hold heart and mind together. British boxing flourishing as rarely before, with those fights that I mentioned, Hay versus Bellew and Joshua versus Klitschko, which were showdowns marked as events rather than fights, and a mixed reception for George Groves, as has been the case for much of his career here, as he makes his walk now to the ringside. This his 4th attempt. He says it's his best chance, and at 29 it might even be his last chance to win a world title against Fedor Chudinov. Certainly it's the best of the 4 chances that he's had so far. Twice he's been beaten by Carl Froch, once also by Badu Jack in the United States at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. But Chudinov surely would have been beaten by those men as well. And Groves here is striding very purposefully towards the ring and arrives at the neutral corner over on the far side beneath the ring lights. Makes his way between the top 2 ropes, flicks back the hood of his predominantly black gown and makes his way around to all 4 sides of the ring. And suddenly the night has come alive.
A stone-faced Groves arriving in the ring there after that now familiar run jog that he does, where he has that look of steely determination on his face. Mike, I'd like to see him just a little bit more relaxed, just a little bit more reserved. This is a fight that he needs to think his way into and think his way out of. And just being, I don't want him so fired up. I want him to relax a little bit more. I want his shoulders down a little bit more. I want him to take a breather, and I want him to think his way through this fight.
I don't think that's what's going to happen, Steve. I think George is going to look to try and hurt him with spiteful jabs from the get-go. That's in his nature. Always was in the amateurs and always was from the start of his pro career. I'm expecting an electric start to this fight.
So the 2 men have taken up their station in the respective corners. Closest to us is the red corner, Fedor Chudinov, and Groves over on the far side of the ring. Michael Buffer waiting in the center of the ring for the formalities.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to beautiful downtown Bramall Lane here in Sheffield, England, where tonight Eddie Hearn for Matchroom Boxing presents, in association with Team Sauerland, our co-feature of the evening. Sponsored by BetSafe, StubHub, and JD Sports. Sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control. Steward in charge, Alistair Hayes. The World Boxing Association, WBA President Gilberto Jesus Mendoza. Supervisor from Denmark, Jesper Jensen. The timekeeper at the bell is Peter Humphrey. Our 3 judges scoring. From Italy, Stefano Carosa. From the United Kingdom, Terry O'Connor. From Belgium, Philippe Verbeke. And the referee in charge of the action at the bell, Steve Gray. And now, 12 rounds of boxing for the vacant WBA Super-Middleweight Championship of the World. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner, wearing black with gold and officially weighing in at 11 stone, 13 pounds, 6 ounces. As a professional, he has 15 fights, 14 victories, including 10 big wins by knockout, only 1 defeat. From Bratsk, Russia, Dami Gospoda, the former WBA Super Middleweight Champion of the World, Fedor Chudinov. And across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing black with red letters, officially weighing in at 11 stone, 13 pounds, 6 ounces. As a professional, 28 fights, 25 victories, including 18 wins by knockout against 3 defeats. From Hammersmith, London, England, the WBA International Super Middleweight Champion, he's the Saint, St. George Groves.
And the last of the formalities, the final instructions from the referee, Steve Gray.
Okay, boys, if I call break, you take one step back. No punches down the back of the head. Protect yourselves at all times. Touch gloves. Good luck.
Well, the last time professional boxing was staged outdoors here at Bramall Lane in 1984, top of the bill was Harold Graham, still regarded as one of the best British boxers never to win a world title. George Groves fits into that category at the moment. Can he rid himself of that label here tonight? It's his best chance. Is it also his last chance as the bell sounds for the first round in this contest for the WBA Super-Middleweight Championship of the world? And Groves eagerly makes his way to the centre of the ring and flicks out a left-hand jab. One to the chin, then one to the body. The first scoring punch of the round from Groves makes Chudinov miss with a jab. Didn't quite time the uppercut, which was his counter punch in reply. As the crowd get into full voice behind the British fighter here, waiting for the hometown hero to come up next, Kell Brook. A couple of jabs from Chudinov, who's on the front foot, lands a couple of grazing jabs on the chin of Groves, who voluntarily goes onto the ropes on the far side of the ring, bends his knees, throws a right uppercut, follows up with a hook towards the chin of Chudinov, who holds his gloves tight and high and guards against those roundhouse punches. Left, right from George Groves, and a roar from the crowd. Clean, solid right hand bouncing off the jaw of Fedor Chudinov. Chudinov's face already reddening, and another right hand from Groves gets through. He follows up with an uppercut that misses, then flicks out a jab towards the torso area. 2 jabs to the chin from Groves, makes Chudinov miss with a right hand. Uppercut, straight jab from Groves as he leans back onto the ropes and gives himself punching room. Terrific confident start from George Groves as Fedor goes to the centre of the ring and steps forward, but slightly apprehensively. Lands a jab though on the chin of Groves, who can't afford to get complacent even though he's had successes. Groves takes a stiff jab from Chudinov, backs off onto the ropes. Chudinov misses with a winging overhand right, still going after Groves. The two men clash heads close to the ropes on the far side of the ring, and Chudinov is firing away here, even though he's taken some clinically clean punches already in the first couple of minutes of the round. Chudinov again throws a jab, misses with a looping right hand. Groves moves around towards the centre of the ring. He's holding the left hand low, flicks it out to the chin, misses with a right uppercut, gets through with a jab. The two men come together in a clinch as we move into the final minute of the opening round, and both men have reddened faces already. It's been a lively start to the contest as Chudinov continues with this high work rate in the opening round. They're not all getting through, but they are making Groves think, and they're making Groves work. As he steps off towards the blue corner, his own corner, takes 2 light jabs, but they did get through from the Russian, who tries to swing and throw a left hook, but Groves takes it on the right glove. Sharp jab from Groves. Then he tries to turn the second one into a hook, almost the punch mutating from a jab into a hook, but Chudinov still goes forward, works away to the body and then the head. Groves works away with a left hand towards the body on the inside, but it's taken on the forearm. Overhand right from Groves does get through though. Both men scoring frequently across the first 3 minutes of the contest. Chudinov is made to miss with a jab as Groves bends his knees at the end of the first round. Lively start, Steve Bunce.
Fast and furious, Mike, as hard and as direct as Adam thought it would be, and as hard and direct as I didn't want it to be for George. I wanted to see him just maybe not throw. He doesn't have to throw left, right, left hook every single time, or right hand, left hook, right hand. And even Chudinov was reading some of those shots. Plus, there was a point over there in that corner, Adam, in his own corner, where he seemed to get hurt. It was just a little look on his face for 1 second, George, clipped, I think, by a little right uppercut.
George used up a lot of energy in that round, and strangely didn't have much composure when he was under fire. Chudinov looks sturdy steady and composed even while getting caught. It's going to be interesting to see if George can settle down and be a bit more composed when he's under fire.
He seemed to come into the ring, Mike. I know I'm labouring it slightly. He was too fired up, too hyped up. And I understand he needs a fast start and a positive start, but you also need to engage what's above your shoulders, i.e. your brain.
The bell sounds for the second round of a scheduled 12 for the WBA Super-Middleweight Championship of the World. George Groves' fourth attempt to win a world title, and the two men exchanged jabs sharply at the beginning of this second round. Groves began so brightly in the first round, but he takes two solid jabs at the beginning of this second round and is forced onto the back foot again as Chudinov grows in confidence with each successful attack. Groves tries to fend off the attack with an uppercut to the body, then a cluster of punches to the head, but still he has his back to the ropes. Chudinov tries to shorten the punches, throwing uppercuts and clipping hooks. Now Groves lands a left right, then a left hook to the body. Good work by the British fighter, but still he's pinned onto the ropes here, and an uppercut again from Chudinov gets through. The kind of shot that Steve Bunce and Adam Booth thought troubled George Groves in the opening round, and Groves at this stage is having problems fending off these non-stop relentless attacks of the Russian. He holds the gloves high, does Chudinov, and just pours forward, at most times ignoring the punches coming his way from George Groves, even though he took a very sharp right hand in the first few seconds of the contest. Chudinov digs in with a right hand, but Groves just sways away out of range. Groves drives in two successive right hands towards the body, just beneath the ribcage of Chudinov, but still the Russian takes them and comes forward unperturbed. He starts to work away to the body now as Groves gets untidy and ungainly in trying to wrestle him clear. Groves for a moment looks over at his own corner, and now he takes up his stance again with that left hand held pretty low, almost inviting Chudinov to throw the right hand over the top. Into the final minute and 15 seconds of round number two. Groves makes Chudinov miss with a jab. Groves again is working away to the body. He's thrown a lot of these right hook come uppercuts to the body, and they've been very accurate and successful, but all the time Chudinov is virtually ignoring them and continuing to mount his own attacks. The two men are standing for a lot of the contest at close quarters and throwing heavy shots to the body. This could be a serious contest of attrition here, and it might come down to the most resilient. And we've seen in the past that Groves has faded as contests have worn on, although he disputes that theory. He moves to the neutral corner, far side of the ring, tries a right uppercut, gets through with a right hand, then a left uppercut and another right hand. Smart work from Groves. But for him, is it beginning to become demoralizing that these punches, apparently at this stage anyway, are having very limited effect? Last 20 seconds of the second round. Groves has been landing with solid punches here. For me, it's been his round, but he's being pressured all the time. Each man lands a jab there, and each of their heads rocked back by the percussion of those punches. Now, again, Chudinov works away on the inside. It's not very effective, but it's all the time keeping Groves distracted as we head back to the corner now, and we'll follow Groves back to the blue corner and his trainer Shane McGuigan.
All right, so when you're stepping and breaking, although the referee's then break, make sure your head position is right on the inside. Get your head low on the inside. You're high and he's coming up and chopping you around the back of the neck. All right?
So no sense of panic in the corner there. Adam, at this stage, what would you be telling George?
Well, I'm going to go back to something you said during that round, and you said that this fight could become attritional, and it looks like it's becoming attritional a little bit too early in the fight. I said it in the first round. George's composure whilst working seems to be a little bit anxious. Yes, he's a big puncher, and yes, he's landed good shots, but it's kind of taking stuff out of George as well.
George has been in title fights since the 8th or 9th fight, Commonwealth title fights, British title fights, European versions and world title fights. He should be slightly more composed here. Chudinov's putting him under pressure, Mike, but it's not ridiculous pressure.
And although he's landing, he isn't landing that cleanly, and it doesn't seem to be having that much of an effect on Groves, but it's the volume rather than quantity of the single punches of Chudinov that is proving to be something for Groves to deal with at this stage. Groves is content to be the counter puncher to allow Chudinov to step forward, as he's doing here once again. They're above us, just in the neutral corner, just a few feet away. We can almost feel the spray bouncing off their heads as the punches ram home once again. They're in a close quarter clinch. They're almost wrestling themselves free. Groves trying to find room for those punches. Both of them warned about use of their head by referee Steve Gray. Groves backs off once again, still dropping that left arm around by his waist. That's been his familiar style throughout his professional career. Throws a jab to the body, was just awry with a follow-up right uppercut towards the chin of Chudinov. Chudinov steps after his man once again, this time draws him back to his own corner, the Russian's corner, which is the red one just to our right here. The two men are working away now, exchanging hooks and short round punches up close as Groves goes back onto the ropes once again. Chudinov looking so strong up close, even though the punches don't have a jarring effect. Certainly they don't seem to be having from our distance here on the safer side of the ropes. Groves backs off once again, looks to throw a jab, taken and parried by Chudinov as he still advances. Relentless aggression from the Russian, who's been 12 rounds 3 times in a 15-fight career that's been spread across 8 years. He's had 2 long gaps in his career. 2 years when he was relocating from the United States, where he was based in the early stages of his career, to his native Russia. And he hasn't fought for the last 15 months since losing a world title fight in controversial circumstances, and that was over 12 rounds. He knows he can go the distance. Still he's working away, but his punches are landing only on the forearms of Groves, who still though is on the back foot, on the ropes on the far side of the ring. He whips in a right uppercut to Groves. We see here, with Chudinov having his back to us, the Russian's head rocked backwards, jerked backwards, but still he refuses to limit the pace of his aggression here. Steps after Groves once again, and this is already turning into a fight that senses for Groves that could be a long one. Groves tries another one of these sharp uppercuts as we move inside the last half a minute of round number 3. Crunching right hand from Groves does get through, but again Chudinov just immediately mounts an attack of his own, having taken a solid shot. Groves clips in those uppercuts again. They're getting home time and again from Groves, and now he works away to the body, but he cannot shift the presence of Chudinov, who stays in punching range even when he's hit hard and solid and frequently at the end of the 3rd round. And George Groves already looks to be breathing fairly heavily. Steve Bunce.
He is breathing heavily, Mike, but then Chudinov is also feeling the effects. It's a hard, draining fight, attritional from the very, very start of the contest. At least in that round, I thought George conserved his punches slightly better, conserved his energy, didn't feel the moment he's back at the ropes that he had to throw 3 shots. He threw fewer punches in that round. I think he's winning the rounds, but he's having the fight full tilt.
The fight settled down in that 3rd round. What's interesting for me now is their choice of gloves. George is wearing small horsehair Grant gloves that allow your knuckles to come through. Chudinov's wearing rival foam gloves where your knuckles don't come through. And I noticed that Chudinov's face is looking more marked up in a round that he actually didn't get caught that much. And the choice of gloves might start to play out now.
He's using those extra padded gloves to do an awful lot of blocking as well. They just give you an extra inch or so.
Into the 2nd quarter of the contest. Live World Championship boxing here from Bramall Lane. Alongside me, Steve Bunce and the former trainer of George Groves, Adam Booth. Groves steps up onto the back foot once again, although he stands his ground and throws a lovely left-right combination, copybook style. But still Chudinov mounts his own attack almost in response. There's a reddening of the forehead of Chudinov as he steps forward now once again. So game and so brave is Chudinov, who's lost just once in his 15 fights. Came to the UK once before and dominated for 12 rounds in defence of this title, which he lost later on against Frank Buglioni. Good work on the ropes by Groves. Opens up at long range. A couple of the shots missed, but 2 of them got through in punishing style. But Chudinov takes them well. Left hook, then a right hand to the body from George Groves is the response as Chudinov came forward with that left hook. Still though, Chudinov comes forward workmanlike, not too fast and not too powerful, but all the time keeping Groves up to his task. Groves throws a lovely short right hand to the chin and a second longer right hand, then a left hook, right hand to the body. Groves is really opening up now, and you get the sense that Chudinov for the first time didn't throw back immediately. Groves is really getting through here, although there's blood by the left eye of George Groves here now as he throws a left hook. Suddenly the two men are opening up here, but Chudinov noticeably is no longer on the front foot. He steps off, having taken heavy punches from George Groves. He didn't throw an attack immediately of his own. That could be a positive sign for Groves, although Chudinov lands a right hand to the jaw of Groves and a right uppercut, but Groves comes back with a more solid left hook as that left hand side of his face now becomes ever more bloodied by that cut by the side of his left eye, it looks like. Will that give encouragement to Chudinov? He needs it, because he's been badly hurt so far in this round, even though he stands his ground. Right uppercut from George Groves, leaning on his man, trying to show the greater strength. A cupping left hook from Chudinov gets through, but the body punches of George Groves do seem to be having here a real effect on Chudinov. Another clipping right hand, come right hook from Groves gets through. Second right hand, brilliant work from Groves. Now the crowd getting behind their man. Last 30 seconds of round number 4. Groves is really beginning to separate himself in this round, but maybe he needs to, because that looks like a bad cut over the left eye. Still Chudinov powers forward. There isn't too much in those punches, but still Groves picks him off. Left, right hand to the body. Brilliant work by Groves, who moves just for a moment into the southpaw stance, back into the orthodox stance. Right uppercut, left hook to the body, and Chudinov will do well to take this punishment for 12 full rounds as the bell sounds at the end of the 4th, and Groves moves back to his corner and he motions to the referee as if to say that that was a head clash. There's no sign from the referee. Yes, there is. The referee saying that that is a head clash, and the reason that's so important is if the fight is stopped because of that injury, it will then go to the scorecards, and that is so important. Adam Booth, your view on the 4th round?
George invested in the body very early in the fight, the attack to the body and the uppercut, and stayed patient with it, even though he wasn't comfortable under fire. In that round, there was, for Chudinov, an alarming reaction to some of those body punches, and body punches always play dividend later on in the fight. Over the next couple of rounds, we'll see if that has taken effect on Chudinov.
Yeah, you leave them now as a deposit, which you can take out of the bank at some point later on in the opening hours, i.e. the later rounds. And he did show, he lifted his left leg once, he lifted his right leg twice. The cut, I think they've mastered, but it's a hard fight.
Briefly, as we go into round number 5 now, your scorecards.
I've got George 1 even, and George has won all the others.
4-0 George.
And I've got it 3 rounds to 1. So this is turning George Groves' way. Have they done the requisite work on that left eye? Can he follow up that terrific attack to the body in the 4th round? And he capitalised to the chin as well as the arms of Chudinov came down. He holds his guard pretty high as he makes his way in, and Groves hurt him to the body once again. Chudinov stood his ground noticeably. Lovely sharp jab again from George Groves. He really is beginning to find his range now. But Chudinov still has this studious look in his eye. He's facing us almost here as he drives George Groves onto the ropes just above us here at ringside. The arc lights above them shining brightly as Groves finds room for another right uppercut, but Chudinov gamely throws a cluster of punches in reply. Overhand right from Groves gets through, and then he dances away towards his right, away from any possible counter attack. There is a slowing in the work and a lessening in the volume of the work of Chudinov, but still he's very much in the contest as Groves misses with an overhand right and with an uppercut. Just gets slightly wild, didn't time them as well as he did in the previous round, and we're heading towards the halfway stage of round number 5 in a contest that, according to Steve Bunce, Adam Booth and myself, that George Groves is winning here, but he's really being made to work for it, and blood has appeared again on that left eye, and that's why it could be so crucial that he's building up a lead here. But Chudinov drives him back to the ropes and lands 2 successive right hands to the chin of Groves. Groves is taking taking punishment again here in the 5th round. Over on the far side of the ring, close to the neutral corner, he dabs away at the blood on his left eye. A left-right combination from Chudinov gets through. Right uppercut from George Groves in the centre of the ring. He's not nearly as effective as he was in the previous round. How much in terms of energy did he use up in that round? As he moves away again, tries a left-right combination. Jab from Chudinov gets through. Groves misses with an uppercut and then 2 successive jabs. The sharpness has just deserted Groves. He took a left hook to the head here and covers up on the ropes as Chudinov follows up those shots, but landing only on the arms of Groves. Groves swaying on the ropes, flicks out a jab, moves away towards his own corner, neutral corner, far side of the ring. Chudinov steps into range once again, flicks out a weak looking jab. Left-right combination from Groves, his best 2 punches of the round so far. 20 seconds to go. 2 solid right hands. They were straight shots come hooks from Groves. Now he works away to the body, finishes with a hook, then a right hand to the head, but he moves away, Groves, in laboured fashion. He really is being made to work here as Chudinov gets through with a crunching right hand on the left-hand side of the jaw of Groves, beneath the trickle of blood. Left hook from Chudinov gets through as Groves opens up again on the ropes on the far side of the ring. And let's hear once again from Shane McGuigan in that corner.
Stay side on when you're moving back. You're coming too square. He's going to try and walk you onto that big long right hand. Okay?
Stay side on when you're moving backwards, Steve. I wouldn't say there's panic in that corner, but they know this fight is still a long way from won.
There was a big round, the 4th round, Mike, and then we go into the 5th, and suddenly George seemed to take 2 minutes to come alive. Chudinov is pressing, his hands are high, those padded gloves is high. He seems to hurt, hurt's not the right word. He seems to cause George some concern when he does let go with the right hand. I think Chudinov might be holding a little bit back at him.
Well, like I said from the start, George just doesn't look composed under fire. He's great when he's letting his hands go, but the composure comes apart quite quickly when he's under fire.
Would you go as far as to say he looks uncomfortable when he's put under pressure?
Yes.
Is that too strong? You would go that far. Well, that's telling.
Chudinov is the second of the 2 men to rise from his stool, but he virtually dances into the fray here. He seems to have been buoyed by the success he had in the 4th round, and he lands the first scoring punch of the 6th round. Success he had in the 5th round, should I say. 5 rounds completed. We're into the 6th, and he landed the first scoring punch. Now he lands a jab, but he takes a right hand from George Groves. Brilliant shot from Groves, but again, Chudinov comes at him. Takes a shot to the body from Groves. Clean, clinical shots from George Groves now, and this is a pivotal moment, you get the sense, in the fight here, because Groves lands another brilliant right uppercut, then an overhand right, another right uppercut. Chudinov backs off for the first time in the contest. He's trying to stand his ground. He's so brave, but he's being outpunched at this stage now. This is a big attack from George Groves. A succession of right hands, left hooks, another right hand. How is Chudinov still on his feet? George Groves stares at him as if to ask the same question. 2 right hands, left hook. Steve Gray steps in. The referee has seen enough. Bramall Lane erupts. George Groves is lifted aloft. At last, at long last, George Groves is a world champion at the 4th time of trying. In the 6th round, a relentless attack, blistering right hands and uppercuts. Fedor Chudinov's resilience was broken, and George Groves punches the air. What an emotional night. And Carl Froch, the man who beat him twice in world title fights, stands and applauds. Respect all around the sport of boxing for the man who tried and tried and tried, and finally it's come good, and finally George Groves can proclaim himself a world champion.
He's in tears, George Groves, and understandably so. There was 85 seconds of relentless punching, starting with a right cross, then a right uppercut, and he did not stop throwing punches. He did not leave the chance that Chudinov could come back. That was absolutely George Groves' last stand. All those years as an amateur, all those years as a schoolboy, as a frustrated senior, as a pro, falling short. He put it all into that 90-odd seconds of punches. That was it, and it paid off, Adam.
I agree. I think he sensed that was it, and he didn't reserve, he didn't hold back. I mean, he emptied his tank.
He had nothing left.
He gambled, even though he was winning the fight. He gambled. He was cut. He was ahead on points. He hurt him, and he has that killer instinct, right? Yep. Even where he's sacrificing his own strategy, yep. He just wanted to get rid of him, and he did. I mean, Chudinov was numbed, he was taking punches, and he was protected from his own inability to be able to save himself.
And no problem with that stoppage, Mike. Steve Gray, I know the guy was still on his feet and he might complain, but no, he hadn't thrown a punch in 80 seconds.
You get the sense that George Groves could have hit him like that for a week and he still would have stayed on his feet, and there comes a time when the referee has to find some mercy. There was nothing coming back, and that was noticeable because for most of the fight, every time he took shots, the least he did was stand his ground. Most of the time he came back on the attack. There he was doing nothing, and I think, as Adam pointed out 2 or 3 rounds ago, the body shots that he invested in early in the contest also played a huge part in the victory that is now being celebrated by George Groves. Britain has another world champion.
What relief for George Groves, those of us that have been around him for an awful long time. I know you took David Hay to spar with him when he was probably a kid of about 16 or 17. I remember covering him at Dow Youth at that time. And the heartbreak of the 2 defeats to Carl Froch, the heartbreak of the defeat against Badou Jack, when he was a broken man after that. There was a chance he would never fight again after the Badou Jack defeat. It hurt him so deeply. All sorts of problems that he's had to get his head round, and he all got it right tonight.
So we await the official announcement in the ring from Michael Buffer. But you talked about this being a lonely sport, Mike, and a sport where you look inside yourself in the ring. That's exactly what George Groves had to do tonight. He had to dig so deep that Fedor Chudinov was simply immovable for a large part of that contest.
And there comes a time in a contest, as Steve and Adam have been alluding to, where you just have to roll the dice. And he rolled the dice in that round, because had that round gone to its conclusion, you'd have to ask the question, how much more would George Groves have had left at that stage? But he gambled, and the gamble paid off, and his cleaner, fresher punching,
ladies and gentlemen,
won the day.
Referee Steve Gray steps in and calls a halt to this contest. The official time, 1 minute, 14 seconds, round number 6. The winner by TKO, and new WBA Super-Middleweight champion of the world, from Hammersmith, London, England, St. George Groves.
Well, it looks from our vantage point as if George Groves is really struggling to hold back the tears here. 8.5 years as a professional, and after 3 failed attempts, at the 4th attempt, what he described as his best chance and his last chance has resulted in victory. George Groves is the WBA Super-Middleweight champion of the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mike. Buncey, I've got to say, just while that was happening with Michael Buffer, I know it's been a bit icy between Carl Froch and George Groves for quite a while. There was a little acknowledgement from George Groves in the ring down to Carl Froch, who sat just in front of us. Carl was on his feet applauding the decision as well. And you'd like to think that tonight maybe those two have buried the hatchet as well.
Yeah, perhaps this could be it tonight, because George and Carl, their animosity towards each other goes way beyond what happened in their 2 enormous fights. It has continued long into the night. Let's hope tonight, on this cold and frosty and atmospheric night, let's hope it's all over. Let's hope they come in, because Carl not only was applauding, he was up the instant Steve Gray, the referee, waved it off.
A fantastic battle while it lasted, wasn't it, between 2 true warriors of the ring. George Groves, the new champion. Fedor Chudinov is still in the ring at the moment, discussing it with his corner. Digging deep, Adam, is something that we talk about an awful lot. You know George very well. Did you know that he'd be able to go that deep and dig that deep and get that win from there?
Yeah, George, I've seen George in sparring and in fights being badly hurt and still looking to see what shots he can land. The one thing George has is huge balls for a fighter.
He does indeed, and we've seen it, even in certainly the first of the Carl Froch fights, when he, when he had to come through some stuff and when he was still willing to fight it in. And I'm just thinking, Adam, in that, going back to that first round of the Carl Froch fight back in 2013, And the first round's a bit of a blur, and I'll admit I didn't re-watch it. You and I were ringside that night. The first round was one of the finest rounds that I've been privileged to witness at ringside, because it had everything. Did George miss something that night? Did he maybe miss, as Mike talked about earlier on, the roll of the dice that he didn't miss? He refused to do it tonight. Could he and should he have jumped on Carl that night?
No, I think that on that night, I remember after the 7th or 8th round thinking that I genuinely thought that George had the fight
anyway,
under control, and it was about giving nothing away for the last quarter. Turned out that the judges didn't see it that way, which I thought was wrong.
We all thought that was wrong.
And you know, a fight is 36 minutes of micro adjustments that last less than 0.2 of a second, whatever it is, and sometimes you've got to decide to let it go, and sometimes you've got to decide to be more patient and chip away, and it's knowing, it's being able to make the right decisions at the right time that sets people apart.
And tonight, that's exactly what he did there. Once he had hurt Chudinov, and it's interesting because he'd hit Chudinov with some full flush shots, right crosses, left uppercuts and right uppercuts, and sort of a looping in right hook in the opening 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, and he was marking Chudinov up, marking him up, and he was winning the rounds, but he wasn't hurting him, and suddenly did hurt him right at the very start of that 6th round, and then came the absolute relentless 19 seconds. He threw it all in there. After about 60 seconds, were you slightly concerned that Chudinov could weather the storm?
Well, Chudinov looked numbed, and tellingly, there was a couple of shots that he threw back and they were just flailing arms, and that's when I realized that he was numbed and his composure was completely gone. That's just when fighters get hurt, they all react their own way. Nigel Benn, for example, his legs would go but his head would be completely clear. Yes. Other fighters get caught and they seem to black out, and we now know that when Chudinov's hurt, you can't really tell. He just stands there and
takes the shots. Now, what's interesting is that even though this was, in theory, the possibly the last chance, it was certainly the best chance. Let's go over. Darren Fletcher has got a very relieved and weary-looking Shane McGuigan in the corner.
Yeah, Shane McGuigan looks like he's been in there with George Groves. He had to dig so deep there, Shane, didn't he?
Oh, I mean, Fedor Chudinov was an incredible fighter, very tough. Was a former world champion, young. Every time George was buzzing him, he was recovering so quick. And what a hard fight for George, but what an amazing victory. 4th time lucky, and he always had the ability to be a world champion, and now he is.
The guys were saying that it became attritional very, very early, which surprised them a little bit.
I mean, that was his game plan. He was there to shut George's jab down, make him work early, tire him out, and you could see he was making him work hard. And you know, George got his second wind. Like the first 2 rounds, he was a bit shocked at the pace. Settled into the fight, started breaking him down, and then knocked him out. And what a brilliant performance.
Tremendous relief for everybody here, and particularly in the corner, and with George as well when the stoppage came. Could the stoppage maybe have been a little bit earlier? The commentary team thought it might have been.
A little bit early, or early.
A little bit earlier.
Yeah, earlier, definitely. I thought it was a bit of a late stoppage. The guy was out on his feet, one of those fighters that will never go down. But you know, he's standing up and he's knocked out almost, that's what we call it. And you know, it was. He was fighting on instinct, and George, you know, just kept letting his hands go. He's a great finisher, and that was what done the job.
And what's he been through? Because you've worked with him for a couple of years to get him to... In fact, we've got to let you go. You've got to get off. You've got things to do. Thanks a lot. There's Shane McGuigan. We are going to speak to George Groves in a couple of minutes' time, but he's had to shoot off back in the ring. But you could see there, Steve, the relief with Shane McGuigan, and maybe a bit of confirmation there that he agrees with you that maybe the stoppage could have been earlier than it was.
Yeah, it could have been a few seconds earlier. What's really interesting is that line that George was a bit surprised at the pace in the first 2 rounds, because we were surprised here, Adam, and we thought that George was... I mean, he was flat out, George, after 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, my surprise was at George's surprise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on your side.
That was all Chudinov was ever going to do, was put it on him from the start and not try and box with the jab.
But once he had that first couple of rounds, which he won the first 2 rounds, in my opinion, I think all 3 of us agreed on that. But he was having to fight so constantly and so deeply. I mean, the first and second round looked like rounds 11 and 12 or 9 and 10 of a long championship fight. And finally, Adam, going into the 6th round, Adam, the start of the 6th round, did you have any sense that what was going to happen in the next 80 or so seconds? Any idea, any sense?
Chudinov came out at the start of that round bouncing on his toes, And actually, I remember thinking, as he was bouncing his toes, I remember thinking, you're now going to get caught because your head's going to go even higher.
He had a good fifth because George had a good fourth. We thought that may have worn George out slightly. So he'd had a good fifth. So George had to respond in that round.
Well, no, but it was how Chudinov came out. He came out a little bit excited, bouncing on his toes, and that's made for a sharp shooting right hand when someone's bouncing up in front of you.
Just to say that the cut on the eye isn't a nick. That is a nasty, nasty gash on the left eyebrow. Just had a close-up look at it here on the monitor in front of me, and that will require quite a bit of work, quite a bit of, I'll say, some internal and some external stitches. The Sauerland brothers in the ring room, guys that you did an awful lot of business with over the years, and what was also telling, Barry McGuigan was one of the first people to invade the ring, and he went straight for Shane. Confirmation that his young son, he's doing his work. He's doing his work. George still looks absolutely knackered. He looks out on his feet.
I think he's knackered on emotion now.
Yes.
I think George was prepared to go wherever he had to tonight to win that fight.
Yeah. He knew it would be difficult. He knew it would be hard. He put himself under an awful lot of pressure in the build-up to this fight. An awful lot of pressure, telling himself, this is my last chance, which, of course, technically it's not. It's not 4 strikes and out. You could, in theory, have. There have been boxing history that have had more than 4 chances of winning a world title. But realistically, it was going to be his last chance tonight. And that's an awful lot of pressure on a boxer's shoulders.
If that's what you tell yourself, yes. And sometimes we have to be careful what we tell ourselves because we start to believe it. Losing at world title level isn't the end of your career. It just means you lose at world title level. But
even if it's 3 or 4 defeats.
Exactly. But more importantly,
I think we can go now to Fletcher, who I think has got George Groves. Let's go. Darren, have you got George?
No, we haven't. He's just been whisked away. He's just been taken to the changing room because he's got a slight problem with his jaw, I think it is, Stephen. They want to take a quick look at that before he does anything. So he's been whisked out of the ring. We are going to try and catch up with him as soon as we can. So you'll have to hold it for now.
No problem at all, Darren. I'm not at all surprised. He looked very tired in the ring. It's a very nasty gash. It's got to be looked into. And if he suffered a jaw injury or potential jaw injury, that's not a surprise because he took some full-blooded shots throughout the fight.
Yeah, but also Kevin Nidlow is his physiotherapist. You see him walking with him there. And the reason why Kevin is George's physio is because I brought Kevin in. I know how good Kevin Nidlow is. He'll want to get George back to the changing room, minimise the bleeding to reduce the amount of scar tissue that ultimately he's going to end up with. And it's the first few moments once you've got a cut that you can actually reduce the amount of bleeding.
So that's got to be sorted straight away back in a changing room where they would have created a sterile area. Now also what was noticeable then is George wasn't smiling. Generally when you leave the ring and you're going down that tunnel, fans are hollering, putting their hands up, and you're laughing, you're acknowledging people smiling. So that also, he had his jaw firmly set and his mouth firmly closed. Am I reading too much into that?
I think so. I was looking at him being interviewed by Sky and his jaw seemed to be working at 100 to the dozen there. He seemed well and truly happy. I think, he's just fulfilled his dream. And just like we don't know how fighters are going to react when they get hit and hurt, we don't know how fighters are going to react when they've reached their lifelong dream. And he's probably just feels completely numb now and has probably forgotten everything that just happened.
So we'll be back in the changing room. Hopefully they'll take a look at the eye, work out whether they'll look at it there or whether they'll take him down. Darren, have you got an update?
No, not really, but what I was going to say was, Steve, worse things have been said to me to not speak to me in the past, so I'm not too surprised that George Groves has said no and gone straight back to the changing room with the WBA Super-Middleweight belt. But it was a very happy camp as they wandered past. I mean, the big question now is what next, because there are so many potentially big fights and good fights, big domestic fights out there for him.
Yeah, there's all sorts of boxers out there. Obviously, there's a potential second professional fight with James DeGao. That's something that could possibly happen, although DeGao at the moment is looking at all sorts of options, one of which could be a bizarre fight on later this year with Chris Eubank Jr. There's Callum Smith, and George has already knocked out his brother Paul Smith. That's a potential fight later in the year. And then, of course, something that George would absolutely love, I'm sure he'd love, a crack at Badou Jack. Revenge, Adam.
Well, I think the fight that makes the biggest sense in terms of money would be the rematch with James DeGale.
Absolutely.
And that, I think George wins the rematch, and I actually think he wins it by stoppage. in the rematch. I think that George physically looked very strong in there.
Yeah.
I was surprised and a bit disappointed at how emotionally uncomposed he looked in the first couple of rounds, when Chudinov's not a big puncher, so it's not like you've got to worry about being buzzed. Just deal with it defensively and without emotion. But of course, if he's been telling himself for months and months on end, this is my last chance of ever fulfilling my life dream, it was probably that was making him anxious rather than anything technical.
And he also talked in various interviews about how he felt that in the start of his career, and certainly the first couple of world title fights, there was a sense of entitlement that he was only getting what he'd been told he was going to get, probably since he was 15, 16, 17 years of age, probably since he was under your tutelage. Listen, I'm not saying you were leading down the garden path and saying when he was with you, listen, don't worry, George, 10 fights, you'll be a world champion. I know that, but I understand what he means by that sense of entitlement. And that went somewhere between the last Carl Froch fight and the Badu Jack controversial defeat.
Children have a sense of entitlement, right? If we bring them up well, they have a sense of entitlement, and at some point we have to moderate that behavior, and they become adults. But there are a lot of young fighters, especially nowadays with British boxing, that feel that they are entitled to have these opportunities, and they carry that entitlement through the more they win.
It just doesn't work that way.